All right, I think we have quorum, and let's call the Bricktown Urban Design Committee meeting to order. I think we need to start with roll call.
Jonathan Dotson.
Present.
Kasha Egan.
Here.
Ophelia Cancillo.
Here.
Richard McCown. Ava Scaramucci.
Here.
Sandino Thompson. And Brent Wall. And you do have a quorum.
Wonderful. We have a very light agenda for today. I'd like to call for an approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at those?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? How am I doing so far? All right. We have no cases withdrawn and nothing for continuance requests. We have something on the consent docket. Michael, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. This is an item for on consent docket because it's in compliance with all the applicable rules and regulations for Bricktown. It did go to the Arts Commission for review and recommendation on March 18th, and the Arts Commission did recommend approval of the project with a couple of conditions that are reflected in the staff report. And it's kind of up to the commission whether they want to take it off of consent or approve it by consent.
So we have nothing to do here for it. Well, we do have to approve it.
It still needs a CA. They got Arts Commission approval, but it still needs a CA. So it still needs to be approved or not, or approved with conditions.
This is like always. Art goes first to Arts Council, then it comes here.
Yes.
Okay.
Robbie's little flow chart.
Yes.
Yes.
So if we consent, does that mean that we're also agreeing to the stipulations that the Arts Commission put on there?
Yeah, like the two conditions, or do we need to make that explicitly clear in our approval?
Our practice has been to not include them in the CA, but just to assume that those were captured for Arts Commission's purposes, because those are conditions relative to their guidelines and their code, not to ours. So at least that's how we've practiced. And we're confident that it's to paint out the hashtag, and it was to put a marker.
Art mark, and I didn't know what that was. I was gonna ask what that was.
To my knowledge, nobody has never not complied with their conditions. Those are almost, the art marker piece is almost always a condition of their art approvals.
I've always thought that, I think this is what you're saying too, I've always thought that whatever the Arts Council approved, certainly we would go along with, and they are the enforcer if there is an issue that comes up along the way. They do watch those. That's my understanding.
So therefore, we did not write in their conditions in our approval.
So we're approving or disapproving the whole caboodle?
Correct.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve. Can I do that as the vice chair? Okay.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Motion passes, or consent docket passes. We have no other cases for individual consideration or other. I have something I'd like to talk about on other business. Does anyone else have anything that they want to? I guess we can wait. Sorry, we'll wait till we get comments from committee members. So no other business on communications. Michael, do you want to talk about any of those?
A series of cases that have been approved administratively by staff over the past month or so. One's an extension for the work that's ongoing by the Parks Department at the west end of the Bricktown Canal. And then you have a ATM approval at Joe Carter and East Sheridan. and then a few signs that were approved as well. So that's a summary of our administrative cases.
Does anyone have any questions on that? For Planning Commission, B, that was also approved. Is there anything else that we need to go over on?
No, that's just a report out
Okay.
of if you were following that spud.
Okay.
I have a question for staff. Was anybody present for the, I guess they would read it for at city council meeting on the 9th? Were any of you all present for that?
What did you say?
Well, I know that the item B regarding the SPUD was introduced to city council, I think, this week. Still not exactly sure what day it is, but I think it was this week.
It's
And so I know that Aubrey presented comments to the Planning Commission when it was brought before them last month. I just was curious if any of the planning staff was present when it was presented to council, I guess yesterday. Yeah.
Aubrey was there. It was set for, I don't even remember that anybody presented it. I'd have to go back and look. I watched most of council. I don't know that anybody was there to speak on it. Sorry. Yeah.
You're good at that.
So it sounds like we all might need to show up at the final hearing on May 7th.
I'll be there.
Were you there?
Well, no, actually, because thankfully you all informed me of when the reading was going to take place and then when it was going to be presented. So I do plan to be there when it'll be up for discussion. I didn't want to I don't want to give any foresight to my comments so that people be prepared to respond to them, in a maybe potentially libelous manner. So.
Well, do we have any comments from planning staff? What about committee members? We're moving at record time. I did want to take a couple seconds and comment on, one, I think the genuine excitement that I think most of the city feels right now with the new council members being elected yesterday, and just the movement of youth and diversity, I think more wholly reflects what our city is and is about. And then I think the other thing was just to comment on the tragic death of Chad Epley, who was the cyclist who was hit. And I think it highlighted for me and reinforced this idea that for so long as a city we viewed streets as conduits for vehicles and not for people. And so small changes are not going to impact the city in a way that I think will move us into the 21st century. And I posted some things the other day on social media, and I had a lot of people respond to me and just say, hey, I'm scared to ride my bike to work. And I thought, our barometer for being a great city is not where adults feel safe getting to work, but it's where kids feel safe getting to school. And so if we're at a place in our city's history where we don't have adults feeling safe to get to work, we've got 3,500 miles of road within our city, and we don't have one protected bike lane. And so that's on us. I'm not pointing the finger at anyone other than to say we've got to be willing to start thinking about infrastructure differently than how we have been. So,
Well, for somebody that doesn't ride their bike to work, I have been concerned a long time about the fact that it's a very disjointed plan, which I think actually probably it would be better to have no lanes than lanes going along and all of a sudden end. And I don't think that any of this particularly had something to do with his death. If it's the young man from Bast, is that who we're talking about? I think there's also perhaps some lighting issues, and I think it's just a whole package of things. But for people of my generation, I also think that great cities offer the transportation of a bicycle. So I don't know, and I don't know how to begin that when so much is already in place, and there seems to be no space for bike paths. I noticed recently that some bike paths are in the middle, and there's cars on that are not up against the curb. So I don't know, but I concur that maybe this is the first really great opportunity that we're going to get to start working on some of it, and I hope that we can all be a part of that.
I have a thought about that. So one of the things that I don't know that people have full appreciation for is, because I think a lot of the conversation has been about what would happen in a next MAPS, and obviously those conversations are far down the road, but we currently have, let me think about this, is it Better Streets, Safer Cities? Yes, I usually get those backwards, which was essentially a continuation of the last MAP, or the 1 cent sales tax. And I think there's unique opportunities with those resources. Now, obviously, there's a lot of planning that's been underway, but I think there's some unique opportunities within those resources which have not all been committed, and which are actually currently at least trending over projections for receipts, to really sort of focus and to do some things to focus and try and tackle some of these issues in some really important ways. I always think about that in relation to this committee, because I think Bricktown is probably, if not the first, the most practical, pedestrian, sort of friendly or pedestrian-driven community, and I think it bothers people, particularly driving down Reno, and maybe even Sheridan still, that that's the case. But I mean, I'm sure as Avis and others can attest to, that's what it is, and I think that's what it needs to be. I think that we as a city and as a community, and a lot of us as volunteers and being civically engaged, are actually in a position to advocate that we do some things. I know that as part of that initiative, there are sort of pedestrian priority areas. There's for infrastructure, including bike facilities. I have been one to try to advocate to be clear about what we mean by bike facilities, and whether we're talking about sharrows, which I think can be just as dangerous as they can be helpful, whether we're talking about bike lanes, it's like the green things we've been seeing pop up around town, or whether we're talking about protected bike lanes, dedicated bike lanes, like what you would expect to see maybe in urban areas outside of Oklahoma. So I do think there are resources there. I think there's planning underway, and I think our voices, speaking on behalf of what we would like to see in Bricktown, but also our voices just as people who are civically engaged, could definitely benefit that conversation. I think those decisions on the resources and things like that are forthcoming. They're imminently forthcoming, but they're forthcoming this year. So.
Well, and I think all I want to comment is the urgency. Every year we take, we proposed to the city 4 years ago some changes on Classen and at that intersection, and Classen was redone and nothing was changed, and that's where Chad was struck. And so, I think every year we don't, it's another year that a kid can't get to school safely, let alone an adult who knows how to ride their bike. And I thought it was enlightening, some of the responses that were made by people in key positions of Chad shouldn't, basically saying that he should not have been on Classen. And that is, to me, it totally misses the point of a road as an open invitation for any kind of movement. And as a bicyclist myself, and as someone who's I walked here today from my house. Classen is the easiest way to get up and down. It has the least amount of hills. And so as a cyclist, it really is the best route with what we have right now. So I don't think the answer is blaming someone for using the wrong road, but it's to say, hey, what can we do as a city to actually come in and provide safe ways for people to get to either their work or their house or their school. So you guys elected me as chair, so sorry you had to listen to that soapbox. But any other comments?
If I could add just a little bit to that, I recently recommended Jeff Speck's latest book that we did for the ULI book club, Walkable City Rules, 101 Steps to Making Better Places, again by Jeff Speck. And my dad just got appointed as a transportation commissioner. And it's interesting, his generation always refers to that as highway commissioner. And I'm like, it's transportation commissioner, and that's really good. Please get this book on Audible and listen to it, and let's talk about it. And I think we're at this incredible moment where we can begin to have a great dialogue about, what makes a great city, and just the vast majority of streets got built to an ODOT standard with like a 13-foot wide driving lane. Robinson Street in Norman is the example. My brother and I, we're both cyclists. We talk about this. If you squeezed that 4-lane road down to 10-foot driving lanes, you pick up 6 extra feet on each end with nothing but paint. You just repaint the whole thing, but it's in direct conflict with ODOT regulations. So, if you know any other transportation commissioners, you want to recommend this book, we can get them all thinking about these differences. And Jeff really talks about that difference between highway standards and city urban street standards, because people love smooth, fast, brand new streets that they can drive fast on, and they'll vote for that. They'll support that all day long, because we all, want to go faster. And it's going to take a lot of work to try and figure out a way to come up with a city standard. You also mentioned protected bike lanes. We've been working for now over a year on doing a road diet, and as soon as we figure out how to do it, I want to share the same idea for near one of your projects. But there's a road diet idea for Walnut, and one of the problems with doing the protected bike lane up against the curb is trying to train Oklahoma Cityans to park as close to the curb as possible to get out of the route of the streetcar. And so, my position was, let's just have a bike lane. Let's not let perfection get in the way of getting it done, because we're going to get on-street parking and a bike lane and narrower driving lanes. I'm really excited about where Walnut's going to go from 4th down to 2nd. But trying to get the protected bike lane just threw a monkey wrench in the works like you wouldn't believe. So I feel like there's huge opportunity, especially as we look at the on-street parking plan for Bricktown, which would be revolutionary for retail in Bricktown, and now's the time. This should be like our #1 priority. And then to figure out how do we put bike facilities into that and get them to where, Bricktown's just this incredible place. Last thing I'll say on this, it's one of my favorite soapboxes too. I was coming back from a meeting at a tiny home project yesterday, and I decided to come down Western. And it's one of the best pieces of city street in the city. And I kept looking down thinking I was going too fast, and I wasn't even going 20 miles an hour. And I'm like, this is so good. As I kept being afraid that I was going to hit somebody or someone was going to back out. And I'm like, this is perfect. And it flowed too. So anyway, I'll shut up now.
We're really lucky to have, I think, the staff that we have that we get to work with. We appreciate you guys, and I feel like the attitude that's been created, at least within the Bricktown Commission, has been one of trying to figure out how to be problem solvers. I think the Traffic Commission has taken the approach of impeding any kind of change that would be deemed as progressive, and I think that is one of the issues that long-term will have to get changed is, it's been said by a traffic commissioner that the streets are for cars, not for people. And it's like, if you really do think that has an impact on how we change and approach streets. And so, anyways, it's kudos to you guys. Thank you for the work that you do. I hope that we can help change that into some other departments. So, our next meeting is May 8th. Do we have any applications? No? So you won't have to see me until June?
One other thing.
Yes.
I get to say this again this meeting. I said it last meeting. There is a new thing happening here. We did not make our record of 2 minutes today. But the new thing is the greatest, and that is that in all of the years that I've served on this gathering on and off, this is a group that we sit and visit. And this is the correct way to do this. We did it last meeting too. And I'm always willing, and obviously everyone here is, to just take a few minutes and talk about things. It gives us all a better understanding, and we all hear the same thing at the same time. So I just think that's a great improvement for this urban design group, really. I don't know if we're behind and everyone else has been doing this all along, or if we're kind of setting the trend, but I'd like to believe we're setting the trend. Thanks.
Can I just add one small thing too? Is just I'm really excited to hear this kind of talk, being someone who just fairly recently graduated from college. You guys are really setting the stone for the future designers of our city, and that's really encouraging to hear from all of you, and I'm excited that I get to be a part of it now, and it's exciting to think about the future people who are going to be coming out of college and really, being the next leaders in our community. So thank you all for setting the stage for that. And I know that I'm not the only one. And one of the things that inspired me to get into the field that I am of placemaking was the MAPS project and the changes that I saw in Bricktown. So thanks.
That's cool.
Paula reminded me we will hopefully have a May meeting, because I'm finishing up the small cells ordinance stuff that I reviewed at the commissioner training. So hopefully I will get that on your May 8th agenda.
We can have another lovely discussion after we go over that.
So yeah, start priming your topics.
Yeah.
Start priming your topics now for the after discussion.
Okay, well, does anyone want to call this, or motion to call this meeting? Or I can just do it? I get to do it? I call this meeting adjourned.